Welcome to the Coconut Wire, your weekly update on the marathon real estate market. I like to start off the show with something interesting happening in our area. Today kicks off one of the most gloriously unhinged festivals in America, the 44th annual Conch Republic Independence Celebration in Key West, running April 17th through the 26th. It's 10 days of parades, parties, and events that can only be described as very Key West. Highlights this year include the opening ceremony at Mallory Square tonight, the drag races down Duval Street tomorrow, the world's longest parade on the 23rd, and the crown jewel, the Great Sea Battle on the 24th, where water cannons fly. And yes, the stale Cuban bread tradition lives on. It's silly, chaotic, and it's been running for 44 years. It's so much fun. Now let's talk about the Middle Keys because this week's numbers are telling a really interesting story. And once you see the full picture, I think you're going to understand why so many buyers and sellers right now feel like they're operating in different realities. Let's start with what actually closed this week. 5 homes, just 5, the same as last week. Now on its own, that sounds quiet, and it is, but here's where it gets interesting. There are 11 homes that went under contract in last week. That's more than double the closings. So the pipeline is building. Deals are getting made. They're just taking time to get to the finish line. And speaking of time, 82 days, that is your average days on market for homes that did close last week. 82 days, that's almost 3 months from list date to closing date. The national average in the month of March was around 60 days. So here's the thing. The number improved from last week's report. We tick down. And in a market that's been moving slowly, that's not nothing. It's early and 1 week doesn't make a trend, but it's a data point worth watching. And are we starting to see momentum build? Maybe. The closed homes this week moved a little faster than the ones before, and that's at least a conversation worth having. But even with that improvement, 82 days is still 82 days. In a market like the Middle Keys, where inventory has historically been tight and demand has been strong, that number is a signal worth paying attention to. Buyers are deliberate, they're doing their homework, and sellers who priced aggressively at the start, well, that brings us to price reductions. 9 of them this week. And here's where I want to pause and actually deliver good news, because I don't always get to do that in this last year especially. Fewer homes saw price reductions compared to last week's report. Sellers are getting a little bit more dialed in on their pricing right out the gate, and that matters. It means less second guessing, less chasing the market down, and frankly, more realistic conversations happening between sellers and their agent before the listing goes live. 9 price reductions tells us there's recalibrating happening out there, but the direction of traveling, it's encouraging. And when you line that up against only 10 new listings hitting the market this week, you are starting to see some interesting dynamics forming. For every listing coming on, there's one existing seller adjusting their price. And if that number keeps shrinking week over week, that's a sign that the market is finding its footing. Now zoom out for a second. Total number of homes in the Middle Keys for sale, active contingent pending is 404, competing for a buyer pool that only closed 5 deals last week. The gap between supply and closed sales is where the pressure lives right now. This indicates 10 months of inventory on the market in the Middle Keys, not counting off-market inventory. And then there are expireds. 2 listings this week that simply ran out the clock. The seller and the market never found each other. No deal, no reduction that worked, no takers. In a small specific market like the Middle Keys, 2 expires in a single week isn't catastrophic, but it's a reminder that overpricing isn't a strategy. It's a waiting game that doesn't always pay off. So what does all this mean? It means the Middle Keys market right now rewards patience on both sides of the table, but for different reasons. Buyers have options and leverage they haven't had in years. Sellers still have a real market, but the data is telling them loud and clear, price it right from day one. Because 82 days on the market and 9 price cuts later, you're going to probably end up in the same place. As real estate experts in the Florida Keys, we feel if a seller does not have an offer in the first or 2 or 3 weeks, their home is likely overpriced. Now for the deal of the week, and this week it's quite interesting. It's 451 Sombrero Beach Road, one of the best-in-class off-market homes near the beach. This home had been on and off the market since 2022, but was withdrawn again in February 2026. We don't know the back end of the story, but we do know that the home was originally priced at $3.299 and it sold for $1.750. That's a 53% discount. Ouch! Unfortunately, that seller took a big hit, not counting 48 months of carrying expenses. The silver lining is that the seller paid $1.325 million in 2019, so at least they walked away with some profit. None of us want to leave money on the table when we sell our home. We all have needs and financial goals. Pricing a home correctly is the most important thing a seller can do to get the home sold. That is why sellers rely on real estate experts like us to help them accomplish that. If a story like that one has you thinking, whether you're a buyer or a seller or someone wondering what your home is worth in this market, I want to hear from you. Call or text me directly at 305-783-3395. I'm Margie Casey, your host on the Coconut Wire and your real estate expert with Brenner Shale and Casey team. No pressure, no runaround, just someone who knows the market inside and out. That's a wrap on this week's Coconut Wire. Hit follow so you never miss an episode, miss an update. Be sure to share this with your neighbor or someone who might be considering selling. And I wish you a fabulous weekend. And if you're in the area, make sure you make it down to Key West.